GI here on another Advisor Insight lecture. And today we're going to be talking about how essentially you are your brand. Like the reality that they don't really separate you from your brand, and how your behavior, your standards, your communication, your emotional control, and even your personal discipline will directly shape your brand's perception, trust, and long-term reputation. So let's get into it. People, they don't separate you from your brand, right? You would think, hey, my brand is this business or this thing, and I'm going to go about my own life in this way, and you can separate the two, right? They're not the same thing. That's not how people see it, because a brand is simply a perception of something. It's your image. So people will associate that image or that perception based on what they see, whether it's from your brand or you. So whether intentional or not, you're constantly communicating what your brand represents. It's important that you remember that. It's the equivalent to going out and having a certain a reputation. And if you're acting all crazy and everything, they may be like, okay, that's not a good person to work with. It's the same thing for your brand. They may assume, okay, this brand is not trustworthy to purchase something from, or to connect with or engage with. Also, people wanting authority without competence or credibility. So they want to be followed. They want people to buy their stuff. They want to be reposted, whatever, whatnot. And they haven't earned that credibility yet through their competence. You have to take care of these things first, because as I said, they're going to associate you with your brand. So if you do not have expertise in your particular area, you're not necessarily good at what you do, they assume that your brand is not really good. Don't confuse visibility with trust and reputation. Just because you're being seen everywhere, you paid for a bunch of ads, or a bunch of influencers or creators shout you out, that doesn't mean that your audience will have trust with you and that you have a reputation of being someone that people want to engage with or purchase from. Those are two separate things. You need to have both. You need to get that trust and reputation, competence and credibility first, and then try to seek that visibility. It'll be a much better a strategy, much more effective, because now when they come into your sphere via the visibility, oh, okay, this person's legit. This person knows what they're talking about. They have some credibility. All right, let's see what they have to offer. So don't put the cart before the horse. Take care of that competence and credibility and trust, reputation first, then gain that visibility. Another one that will essentially kind of tank your brand is emotional instability. It damages your relationships, your communication, your leadership, and even your own decision making, whether that's in your business or in your life. If you are an emotionally unstable person, people don't want to interact with you. I will say that again. If you are an emotionally unstable person, people don't want to interact with you. And it's going to be the same for your brand. You represent your brand. So it's critical that you get your emotional situation stabilized and regulated enough to where people feel okay being around you. It doesn't feel like a liability or a potential threat, right? And it definitely impacts leadership as well. We've all had the boss or the manager who's emotionally unstable, making life hell for everyone else, right? And then what do? Try to stay away from that person. Would be the same thing for your brand. They may say that person is a problem. Let's go ahead and try to stay away from their brand. Let's not engage, interact, or buy from their brand. Another one would be trying to manufacture authenticity instead of actually being like really aligned with what you do. This I see all over the place, because everyone's trying to market themselves. They're trying to brand themselves. So they're trying to seem authentic, right? But when people dive a little deeper, which they do today, they'll go to your profile, they'll go to your website, they'll go read through your stuff to see, is this person real? Is this person actually what they say they are? And if not, well, that's a problem. Building a polished image without any substance underneath it is just a house of cards. And when someone steps through the door, they all fall. So it's critical that you're being real for who you are, because they will find out later, and it damages your brand in the long term. It's a short term tactic for a long term loss. The last pattern I'm going to touch on is leaders avoiding accountability, but they still expect trust and loyalty from other people. Leaders, you need accountability. If you're always victim blaming, using excuses, putting things off on other people, people won't trust you. And also, of course, your brand. That's someone who doesn't take accountability. That's not someone I can trust. That's what accountability is about. It's about trust. Can I trust you? Like, yes, we make mistakes. We mess up. We're human. That's normal. That's okay. But when you do mess up, do you own it? Do you make it right? Because that is what will allow me to trust you. Not that you're perfect. No one's perfect. It's that when you do mess up, you take accountability and you make it right. That is your reputation. That is your brand. Do they stand by what they say? Do they take care of their customers? Right? These are all things that people notice for your brand. That's why you are the brand. Can't separate the two. Even if it seems like you can do so via using a digital platform, right? They're still together. And that goes back to communities for all of our history as humans, in terms of someone having a good reputation or a bad reputation within their community or their tribe, and whether or not people want to work with you, which directly led to whether or not you got to eat or stay safe. It's critical. Now let's break down some of the consequences. If you have a weak brand identity, or like your positioning isn't exactly clear, that's going to be a real big problem, right? Because people won't know how to react to you. And I'll be honest, this is something I struggle with, because I'm more of a generalist. I'm not an exact specialist in one specific area, right? Throughout my experience, I've worked with many different companies through many different industries in many different ways. So it's very difficult even for myself to have a strong enough identity that people can say, oh, okay, I understand what you do. I need that, or I want that, right? Let's talk. But it still needs to be done. And on my end, it has to do with finding the commonalities between all the things that I do, which is going to be like diagnosing whatever problems are going on, finding the source issue, developing a strategy and systems to solve that problem, and providing insights if someone needs to try to do it themselves. Right? Find the things that you and your brand are very, very good at, and make sure that you position yourself within that realm so that that audience understands and can connect with you and will say, this person can solve my problem or help me. Another consequence is, well, inconsistent audience perception. Like if they don't have a consistent perception of you, because this day you're on point for your stuff, but that day you're going rogue and doing all these other things, right? They don't know, like, what does this person represent? It creates confusion. Confusion in today for an audience is a death sentence, because they do not have the time or the energy to be able to go ahead and really sit down and think, okay, what is this? What does it mean? Whatever, whatnot. They're burnt out. So you got to get to the point. Get to the point, be clear, make sure they understand it. Another one, low authority, despite having a high visibility. We've talked about that. Having a loss of trust, credibility, and client confidence, right? Because you're not aligned with your brand. Your audience will disconnect with you and your brand because people can sense the inauthenticity. Like they understand, hey, this person is not what they represent. I cannot trust you. That's why if you're dealing with anything marketing, you hear the word trust a lot. Trust. Right? And it's a natural thing within the community of humans. You have to be able to trust each other in order to work with each other. So if your audience can't trust you, they're most likely not going to buy from you or support you. It's critical that you get those things in line. Align your brand with who you are and be that. Otherwise, it leads to another potential consequence: reputation damage from your emotional reactions and your poor decisions. If someone sees that, I said it before, if someone sees that you're emotionally unstable or that you make bad decisions, they're probably not going to either want to work with you, definitely not going to want you to lead them, and they just may not want to engage with your brand, period. Emotional regulation is something that is such a big topic today because people struggle so much with their emotions now. We've broken down the systematic function of how humans work, right? We have a certain way of working that allows our emotions to be stable and be productive. And unfortunately, modern society has altered that. So you have a lot of people who have unregulated emotions. They can't regulate their emotions and they're making a lot of bad decisions. Don't be that person. Work on your emotions. Do some emotional regulation. Practice. Use the air performance system that I have, right? To be able to break it down step by step and get your emotions in order. Don't let those hurt your brand and hurt your life and the potential things that you want. Another consequence: brand confusion caused by mixed signals and inconsistent behavior. What we just talked about. Right? You're all over the place. So I don't know what you really represent. So I'm going to ignore you now, right? That's the outcome for a lot of these things. A lot of these things is not going to be like, okay, let me tell on you. Okay, some direct consequence. No, it's going to be a consequence that you can't always see. They're just going to ignore you. That is the number one tactic that people will do today. I don't have time for this. I don't have energy for this. I don't trust you. They just ignore you. Previously, and pay attention here, previously within communities, they would correct that. They would tell you, hey, you're messing up here. Get your stuff together, right? Because they looked out for each other. It was constructive criticism. But today, people don't have that kind of patience and they don't want to deal with the drama that might come with that. So instead, they just ignore you. And from that, your brand eventually collapses under the weight of misalignment. It doesn't last long enough to survive. These are things you need to pay attention to because people's perception of your brand is everything, because that is a brand. It is a perception of your business, right? Or of whatever it is that you provide. And if people don't have a good perception of that, your brand's done. So let's talk a bit about the solution. First, build internal clarity and alignment before you try to do any external branding. Make sure you understand your brand. I work with a lot of people, and when they're struggling or they're like, oh, I don't know about this, they have some doubts, they have insecurities. One of the first things I look at is, do you understand your brand? Because if you're confused on your brand, you're not going to be confident, right? And in this particular situation, you need to understand your brand so that you can portray that to your audience. Make sure you're in alignment with the two. Then do the external branding. Again, don't put the cart before the horse. Align your behavior and your standards and even your performance or your execution with what your brand claims to represent. Make sure those match. That's critical. Another piece of this: develop real competence, like real skill, real expertise, real experience, instead of relying on appearance and just marketing. Have some substance. Do you represent this? Are you able to do what you say that you do? This is something I see with a lot of either thought leaders or content creators. They talk a whole lot about a subject that they don't know a whole lot about. Right? And any of the experts out there, you know what I'm talking about. When you go to a YouTube channel, especially on YouTube, you go to a YouTube channel and you're watching someone talk about something that you're an expert in, you're like, none of that's correct. None of that. Right? So a particular thing that I'm an expert in, ironically, is audio. I spent a lot of time within the music industry and working in audio and as an engineer. So it's something that I know very, very, very well. And it's very difficult to watch certain YouTube channels as they try to break down their secrets or tricks, right? So don't be that person. Instead, have some real competence in what you do and then put that out there so that people can see that. They'll feel more comfortable with you. We touched on this before, but keep control of your emotional reactions and communicate with some stability. Communicate that you are stable, right? People, they don't feel comfortable around people who are emotionally unstable. They do not trust them. From a biological and evolutionary standpoint, they are a threat to your psychological well-being and safety and survival. So, like I said, regulate their emotions, get them under control so that they are not hurting you and your goal in your life. Focus on your long-term reputation versus just short-term attention. I am big on this. Today, everyone's looking for quick fixes, doing the short-term thing. Let me get a short-term win, short-term, hopping around, and wonder why they're so tired at the end of the day, got so much anxiety, so stressed, they're depressed, and then they wake up and try to do it all over again. As I said before, that's a losing proposition. Instead, look at the long term. Go big picture. Where am I going? What direction? What reputation would I like to have? Okay, what are the steps that I need to get there? All right, you got that taken care of? Okay, now that that's taken care of, let's look right in front of us. What needs attention? What do I need to address? And you do those things so long as they do not affect your long-term reputation. That's the key. The key isn't to just do only long-term or only short-term. You're going to need to do both, but you need to make sure that the short-term doesn't hurt the long-term, right? If you're saving up for a house or whatever not, but then you suddenly want a new car and you already had plans in terms of when you need to move, you don't go out and then buy a car and now you don't have money to move into your house. You need to work that out. There's ways around it. You know, you could lease it. You can do all kinds of different things. Lease it, have it for your business, write it off on your actual taxes, be able to make additional money. That might be the way to go. But you need to think it through. Don't sacrifice your long-term reputation for some short-term wins. Last portion of the solution, understand that leadership psychology directly impacts your brand's performance. So many leaders get a pass. I was on Threads. I saw a leader who was posting and saying that they had fired this extremely experienced engineer because they pointed out all these problems and things to watch out for, but they disagreed with it, so they fired him. And then it ended up that they were right, and that it cost them all this money, all this time, blah blah blah. And then immediately the comments said, "Well, why weren't you fired?" That's a good point, right? As a leader, you have to remember that everything that you do will impact your brand and your team and your results. Don't get to separate those two. You need to make sure that you're being a good leader because you are representing that brand. So critical. You don't get a pass. As a leader, I will say this directly. As a leader, it is your job to take care of the people who follow you. That's the role of a leader. It's to lead them, to take care of them, to look out for them. If you're messing up the brand and that's messing it up for the entire rest of your team, you're not being a good leader. You're being selfish. Might have to make a whole other lecture on that. But to close this off, as we're getting into these things, you're not going to be able to separate yourself from your brand. All right, people are going to think they're the one and the same. It's human nature. That's fine. And they do judge your brand, like through your behavior, your standards, your communication, your reputation. And this is the key part. When you make a brand, when you consciously make a brand, it oftentimes will expose your real level of discipline. Like if you actually have discipline, your alignment and your competence. A lot of people, oh, I'm going to start a brand today. Well, do you have these things in order? Because people are nosy and they have the internet and they will search you and find all the stuff about you. Right. So you want to make sure you have those things in order first, so that when people do look at your brand and you, they see that they match, they're congruent, they're aligned. Okay, this person does and is exactly what they say they are. I can trust you. Now we move to the next stage. So if you want a stronger brand, first become stronger internally. Make sure that you're aligned with yourself. Then make sure that you understand what your brand is. Then make sure that those two match. And if they don't, go back, rework it. Rework it again. This is positioning. If you hear the term positioning, you didn't really know what it was. It's essentially this. How do I position myself first internally so that we match, but then also externally within the market? How are they perceiving me? Positioning. So get those things taken care of. Because in the end, you are your brand. And there's no separating that. So GI here on another Advisor Insight lecture. If you guys want more lectures like this, go to my insights page, gigriffin.com/insights. You could check it out on there and get all kinds of things like the lectures, the show, books, and even some of the frameworks I mentioned, the AIR performance framework, which is an emotional regulation psychological performance framework. All right, guys, GI here. I'm out.